Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the best number 1E7448 C413 RP3 622. This is a mortise cylinder. This is not a garden variety average mortise cylinder in the sense that it's a 48. It's a 3-inch long mortise cylinder. So we're going to talk about this cylinder at length, what it's used for, why in the gospel you might need a 3-inch mortise cylinder. This is not a long one. They make them up to 6-inch. Let's take some basic dimensional properties. So first, this is a 1 5/32 inch diameter mortise cylinder. That's the diameter of the body. 32 threads per inch. That's considered ultra fine, and that's typical when you are screwing something into something that is relatively thin, like a lock case would be relatively thin. So lots of threads packed per inch, and that diameter is the typical diameter for builder's hardware when it comes to mortise cylinders. There are 4 diameters of mortise cylinders that I'm aware of, and I have an example of each in my lock collection. You have your peanut cylinder, which is a 3/4 diameter. That was used in aluminum storefront mid-20th century. You have your builder's hardware, 1 5/32, typical mortise cylinder. You have your jumbo mortise cylinder, to me better known as a Corbin master ring, but Sargent made them as well. Then you have your 2-inch mogul, which is used in detention work. ASA makes that. Other people do as well. They'll make a mogul 2-inch. In that 2-inch, all the parts are bigger, much more robust piece of equipment. The master ring is pretty unusual in the sense of bumping into it out in the wild, except if you're in an environment where it's everywhere. And its heyday was certainly when the Empire State Building was built in 1929 or so, don't quote me. That was all master ring. So master ring was patented in about 1889 plus or minus, and 1905, probably all the way up to the mid-20th century, it was probably pretty common. There are installations, there are universities, hospitals that still have it, and you'll bump into it. Now, the other important component, the length. This is a 48, and that means 3-inch. This is a 3-inch cylinder, but you'll note the body length is 3-inch, not the outside to the cam. So if you're accustomed to measuring mortise cylinders, you'll note Best does it differently than everyone else. The length of the brass body is what you're ordering, so you have to allow for the cam. I'm not exactly sure why they do it this way, counter to how everyone else does it. Everyone else does it underside of the head to the back of the cam. I have asked Best why they do that. The gentleman I spoke to gave me an honest answer. I don't know. I've thought about why they do it. I can understand why they may do it that way. They just have a certain logic, a certain thought process or manufacturing process that's what you get. I assumed once upon a time that it was like everyone else's mortise cylinder in terms of length. I ordered it the size that I asked for, and I measured the cylinder and then contacted the manufacturer and say, "You shipped me the wrong cylinder." No, we didn't. So I had a learning curve, which is most of everything that we do. This cylinder is going to include an RP3. You'll get a couple of trim rings. I think this is 3/8 and that's 1/8. I'll confirm that. The final thing you're going to get is a spacer. The 7 in the part number means that this can handle a 7-pin length small format core. You can insert a 6-pin length core into it, except that you're going to use a spacer. And if you install a 5-pin length core into it, you'll need 2 spacers. Now, let's talk about exactly what this is used for. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, what is this cylinder used for? Well, it's a mortise cylinder, so you're going to use mortise cylinders in countless applications, whether it be a mortise lock or maybe an alarm switch, or you're controlling exit device trim, whatever it is that you need a mortise cylinder. Concealed vertical rod panic devices. The length, though, is something that you have to calculate as what you require. Now, this client's in Italy, and the job, I understand, is in Washington, D.C. They are building for the client 5 15/16 inch thick doors. Really. I have supplied the client with this cylinder, 3-inch, not including the cam. I've also supplied them with a couple of Kaba Ilko thumb turns. The length of the thumb turn and the cylinder are variables. The door thickness is a variable. Where you position the lock in the door is a variable. Is it centered? Is it biased towards one side or the other? Extended equally or unequally could be some terminology that you think of. So this, and I'm just going off of my memory, this material was ordered weeks ago. 5 and 15/16 thick doors. I know that the lock is installed in the center of the door. When it comes to long mortise cylinders, you're kind of relegated to what sizes are available. Best, and I'll show you the product catalog, you can't get any fractional size. With that Kaba thumb turn, you can't get any fractional size. But when you talk about adding small trim collars, and this is the RP3 is what came with this cylinder. I actually, the client also has very thin collars as well, 3/32 and whatnot, some 1/8 inch. So 5 and 15/16, that's an unusual thickness because we've got a 1/16 of an inch in play. So what I did was to calculate. I knew that my lock center was going to be at 2 and 31/32, 5.9375 times 0.5. Okay, so 2 and 31/32, a pretty icky dimension. That's going to be the center. So I knew that I was going to leave a dimension between, I was going to leave, between the two cams, I wanted to leave like a 1/16 of an inch, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I took my 5 and 15/16, I deducted a 1/16 of an inch. That got me down to 5 and 7/8. So 5 and 7/8 divided by 2 is now 2 and 15/16. Okay, with the best cylinder, I know that I'm dealing with 3-inch. And whatever other standard sizes they could do, 2 3/4, 3-inch, or whatever it was, but 3-inch fit the best. So from that formula, I then deducted 3-inch, but I also deducted my thickness of my cam, which is 1/8 of an inch. And that leaves me with 2 3/4. I then took a Kaba Ilko mortise thumb turn, which was 1 1/4, and I added to it an extender, a 1-inch thick extender, and then a 1/2 inch thick extender. So I was adding 1.5 inches to my 1 1/4 cylinder, getting me 2 3/4 inch. Okay. Major manufacturing makes not only the brass. Think of taking this and cutting it, and you're left with 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch thick holes drilled through it. Major manufacturing makes these extensions. They also make the tool for drilling and tapping the back of your mortise cylinder so you can add on to it, and the drive necessary to extend the cam. So I came up with a 2 3/4 length cylinder. In this scenario, the client did not want any trim rings. He's not going to use these. He might use this, but he does have a couple of 3/32 trim rings that he'll use just because you're going to use a trim ring, most likely. He doesn't have to, theoretically, if he drew the cylinders all the way down, but you know as well as I do, you're not going to be able to thread this in and have your key completely vertical. You might need to play with that a little bit, 3/4 of a revolution, 1/4 of a revolution. So those little collars will give him the ability to space that off correctly. Plus, it's nice to have the collar on there, so if someone were to try to put a wrench on it, it'll just spin. So it's a security measure as well. So the cylinders are the wrong length compared to each other, necessarily, but they're going to work within the cavity of the lock that we're dealing with. Okay, so that's going to work out just fine for what we're dealing with. Actually, maybe it was a 3-inch that I did. I now don't recall. It might have been 1 inch and a 3/4 to get to 3-inch, and then we were going to space them out. I don't recall, but one way or another, that's what I would do. I would use I would probably use a 3-inch cylinder on both. Okay. The problem is, because best doesn't include the cam in that dimension, okay, you're for sure going to need to create some extra room. You're either going to need to build out that thumb turn a little bit or suck that mortise cylinder out a little bit, that 1/8 of an inch. Okay. It'll probably be okay because the lock case is going to tolerate, it's just an Adams Wright swing bolt, an MS 1850. So that will tolerate that being off center inside of the lock cavity just fine. But that's my logic to go about determining what cylinder length you need. You have to calculate where in the door thickness the lock is placed. Strike a center line, and then from that center line to your underside of your head, which will be your cylinder, deduct from that whatever you need to deduct. The thickness of a trim collar, and then the thickness of a cam if necessary. But initially, you're going to allow yourself some space between the two cams that need to operate against each other in the center of the lock body. So, and that's what then you determine what am I left with, meaning what does the manufacturer give me as options for length, figure out what that is for both cylinders, and then decide appropriately how to proceed, and this will work out just fine. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at the supporting documentation. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, so here we go, taking a look at the item. Not much to see here, but a part number, and we're going to dissect that in a moment. Let's take a look at some photographs that we have uploaded first. That's the box. That's what it looks like when it comes into you. Your part number's on there. The contents. The 622 is black. That's a powder-coated black finish. Different perspectives of the cylinder itself. Again, 3-inch length of the body itself. The front side showing focus and back of the driver. Front side focusing on the face of the unit. Let's take a look. We have some more images here as well. Here is the cam. That's the that is the C413. The C181 is the typical Adams Wright cam in the catalog for an Adams Wright cam. And that's a riveted on cam. The C413 is a screwed on cam, and that's what that looks like. Adams Wright application. Your RP3 and your spacer, and just a couple of random images here as well. Now as we switch back to the product that we're working on, there are links below this video that allow us to review the extended description information. Let's take a look at them. First we have, well, notes. Let's take a look at that. That's intriguing. This actually doesn't apply to our scenario. Let's skip over the notes. I'll have that removed by the time you see this. So installation instructions. This is sometimes included with the cylinder, sometimes not. Standard material, I see it's included. This cylinder, this 3-inch, is not going to include that sort of a set screw, the security device that you'll thread into the lock itself, and it's a means by which to help prevent the unauthorized removal of the cylinder from the lock body. That screw gets installed in here in a standard mortise cylinder, and then you thread that down and it sticks out the back. So if you're going to try to rotate that, it's not going to move. So should you see a groove cut in the side of your mortise cylinder, that's what it's for. Now, the product catalog is here. Now, we're going to recall our part number as well, which I'm going to copy. We'll put up here, it's a 1E7448 C181 RP3 622. So this is the product catalog, and the how to order is here. And we're going to dissect this. And you'll note that dimension A is indeed referencing the back of the body and not the cam. That's how they do it. So 1E, that's a standard cylinder. They can do a jumbo or a master ring size, the 1.5 inches. There are other cylinder types here as well. 7 is the next value that we have. 7. It's a 7-pin. It will accept all best cores, regardless of length, you just may or may not need more than the one spacer that's included. I doubt that you will. The next value we have is 4. It is a mortise cylinder. For additional special mortise cylinder, see pages 4 and 5. That C column is the function. It's just a typical mortise cylinder, but there are some specialty cylinders that we can take a look at. And they're on pages, again, 4 and 5. You can have a thumb turn style, a tapered head style. They're going to be able to produce dust cover version. They're going to be able to produce specialty cam applications. They're going to be able to produce lost motion, or what's called lazy cam action. They're going to be able to do a hotel motel style cylinder. I'm sure that they can do, no, I'm going to retract that. So special cylinder functions are in that 4th column. The thumb turn is the one that I do mostly. The hotel I don't recall doing. Standard mortise code in column D, that's a reference to the length. Standard mortise code. It should just be called length, I think. Blank is standard. A 7-pin, I think, is going to be 1 3/8 if you don't designate. If you leave it blank, that's what you're going to get. Blank is standard. If it's 7-pin, it's going to be 1 3/8. I think if it's 6-pin, it'll be 1 1/4. But you can define the length. And using this chart, you can see where I got my 48 from. 3-inch. You can see that they're only going in 1/4-inch increments, so that was somewhat of a restrictive factor when I was calculating my cylinder lengths. I calculated I would need a 48 length, but here are all the other lengths. That's pretty handy. Now let's take a look at the cam or spindle. That's on page 8. Let's go to page 8. I had mentioned in the part number it's a C181, or at least what you're seeing, but that's a riveted on style. That becomes a C413 when it's a screwed on style. And unfortunately their catalog doesn't have these part numbers for the screw on style cams. I'm going to request that data from them and ask that they provide that. But the cam is what's going to come next. What's your lock prep? Pardon me. What is your lock application? What cam do you need so that your material works compatibly? This is Adams Rite, and while Adams Rite has 3 different cams, the one that you always bump into the most is that MS style cam, which looks like this. But they do have 2 others, and both of them look like standard cams. You'll note this one's a little bit longer than this one. Same logic applies with those other 2 Adams Rite cams. They're standard cams, but one is shorter. Specialty Lock takes one of those. So cam is where you go with that. Then after that, now let's take a closer look at the remaining designations of our long part number. RP3 is what's next, the rings column, which is the F column. And they're right here. They say page 9. It's not. It's page 3. RP, RP1, 2, 3, and there is a 5, an RP5. Our RP3 ring package, as I said earlier, was 3/8 and 1/8 of an inch. You can change that to an RP2, an RP5, an RP1, but the description shows you here what is being used. I think an RP5 is a 3-piece ring set where you'll get the 1/8, the 3/16. You know, and what I've pulled up was a updated catalog, and here it is, which shows the RP5. It does give you 3 trim rings, 1/8, 1/4, and 3/8. Okay. Let's see if this new, and I paused the video to find this. And yeah, okay. Yeah, they still don't list the screwed on cams. I will reach out to them separately for that. So back to the document, the original document we're working on. After that, it's just finish. This is 622. That means black. In the world of BHMA, Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association, let's pull up a BHMA chart. I'm just navigating to where I know that I have it. BHMA finish chart. 622 is flat black coated over brass or bronze. Okay, 622. That's the finish code. So that is pretty interesting stuff there. Now, there's a link below this video as seen here to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that, you're going to be able to pull up the manufacturer's page where we have presented to you a link to the manufacturer's website, a link to the product catalog, all of the best products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation. But also we have encyclopedic documents, reference manuals. What I mean by that is the best core and key service manual is here. The original and new version, the older and new version of this cylinder manual that we just looked, the cylinder catalog we just looked at. We have the A2 and A4 systems training. So if you're wanting to learn how to combinate or key small format, the documents are here. Here's the A2 service manual. That means small format. Other encyclopedic documents are here. Now their service manual, the best access service manual, I would suggest that you know where to find that if you ever have a need to call BEST, because the person you speak to, the first thing they're going to do is open up that document. It's over 1,000 pages if I recall, and you can just simply do a Control F, you know, on your keyboard and just find it. Hopefully, 1,358 pages. So this would be a great place to start when you're working on anything BEST technical support related. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay, in conclusion, we are dealing with an unusual length mortise cylinder, but now that we've discussed why we're using it, it makes perfect sense. A 6-inch thick door, or 5 5/15 is certainly thick. It's not abnormally, it's not hyper unusual. The bottom line is you're going to do all kinds of weird stuff in weird thicknesses, whether it be a 2 1/4 inch thick door that's not centered, or it's going to be an 1 3/4 thick door with 1 inch applied panel, or it's going to be a custom aluminum fabricated gate that's 4 1/8 inch thick. There's lots of reasons that you'll need long mortise cylinders and use those to work out very well whatever you're working on. I find that BEST is a very helpful company. When you contact their technical support, they are always eager to help, and they always, without exception, follow through as well. If there are any questions on, and this client has 2 of these on order, one E7448 C181 or a C413 and a 622 finish with an RP3 or any other BEST product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.